Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Pulcinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you guys here with me today. I have a wonderful guest that I am super excited to be able to dive into this conversation around our medicine and how we handle our lives. So, Sunflower Medicine, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
My pleasure, Kat. I'm so happy to be here. Every time I talk with you, within minutes, I learn something new. And so I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share that with you and hopefully provide the same. So happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. And I am so excited to learn all the things about you. I'm going to try not to touch my desk today because apparently it's bouncing around because I am sitting instead of standing. So do us all a favor then, Sunflower, as we jump right in. And please tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do.
Yes, I am Sunflower Medicine, and it's a part of my life that has come along kind of after I've raised my kids, kind of established myself. I've been blessed with the opportunity to say, like, who do I want to be and what do I want to contribute to this world? And in that journey, it's been beautiful. I've had my challenges, the universe, life throws things at you didn't expect, and but it always gives you the tools and access to grow and learn more. So in doing so, I've explored some alternative sort of types of medicine, plant medicine. I've also kind of really, despite being someone that every day since I can remember kind of woke up with this respect for God and life, I've really come to explore this next level opportunity to really bring together my spirit, mind, my physical body, and really explore what's available there. So, and doing that's what I want to talk about. I've written a couple of books about it. I certainly share videos and content, and just it's who I get to be now. And so I'm happy to be here and share that with you.
I love this so much. And I love that, you explain that this is a part of your journey, right? I think that sometimes we, especially as moms, and women, we tend to get stuck in a role and we don't always necessarily think about like, this is where I'm meant to be now, but
Yeah.
what do I want to be in the future? What do I have the ability to do? How do I want to change? What do I want to evolve? And so I love that, that your children are grown and you're finding this new space in you, that this is kind of where it has led you. What I also love as well, and I'd love for you to touch on this a little bit, is you said that speaking around God and everything, but you talked about how you unlock this other piece of you. And
Yeah.
I do feel like we kind of lie in this really, really tiptoe balance when it comes to speaking about spirituality and speaking about God. A lot of times you hear people that speak about God or I believe in this higher power. It tends to be so church focused that people kind of push away those that say, well, I'm very spiritual. As someone that was raised as a Roman Catholic, I always separated the two completely. And then it really kind of hit me several years ago when I was going through my own growth journey and new path that you can have both. And actually, in my personal opinion, It is a beautiful way to take the one piece that you have and that I almost feel like scratching the surface of what you believe in to like a whole nother level of being able to open yourself up and realize that you can have this beautiful spiritual understanding and feeling and still be connected with this higher power. And it's not that they fight each other, it's actually that they align and work together.
100%. And it's like, we learn 2 + 2 = 4. That is still true. Those foundational things that we learned are still true. But now we can go into and learn more about statistics and geometry and how things work, how to use those basic concepts. I was raised Southern Baptist. So, I think they're very similar in that we follow rules, and we set examples, which I'm all for. And whether it's been in my spiritual journey or my religious church journey, I recognize that in this human experience, there are people involved, and people are fallible. And so I've in my youth, I probably tended to follow people more, and let them decide what my spirituality and my relationship with God meant and how it was defined. And as
Mm.
I've grown, this spirituality has allowed me to really depend upon my body, my senses, my feelings, my mind, and my relationship with God. And it's not the same as yours. That's one thing I've learned. We all have a different relationship and we're all empowered to define it. And so one thing that really struck me as I started exploring plant medicine and interacting with divinity and with God in a new and different way, I did so around a health journey. And as I got better and I felt better, I was with my mom and with my family, and we went to church. I went to church with my mom, and going on how I feel and how my mind, body, and spirit connect and resonate with truth. When I walked into church, there was no doubt in my mind that God was there. No
Mm.
doubt. And so, despite some of the things that I've heard from the pulpit that I don't agree with, God's there. God's there. There's no doubt in my mind. And so, it really gave me some reassurance that this religion, that my foundation that I grew up with, that defined so much of how I think and how I behave, really, really fits perfectly with this next level of spirituality.
Oh, so beautifully put. I love that. And I love that you talk about how, we all have our own connection in that realm. And I think that that is, again, where a lot of us get stuck, right? Because we are raised by this book and we're raised by these rules, which ultimately some are set by man. That's my personal opinion, but I do think there's a little bit of tweaking that is in that. And it is so that it appeals to the masses, right? Because that tends to be easier to teach. But I love that you talked about this presence that you have and the way that it connected to you and how you got to understand your own feelings and your connection, which in turn actually deepens it. So I think this is beautiful to lead into, your book that you were talking about. You talk about plant medicine, you talk about your journey with plant medicine. I am really curious to know more of what your book kind of entails about that. And when you say plant medicine, does that mean one specific plant? Have you done a lot of different, because there's so many things out there that people talk about trying, like ayahuasca tends to be like the number one plant medicine you hear all across the board. And there are other things that I know a lot of people do as well. So I'd love for you to kind of enlighten us and take us on that journey.
Thank you. So, my book is called Midlife Medicine. And my experience is that whatever midlife is defined, there comes a point for many of us where we're like, is this it? Or do I have what I need? Like, I checked all the boxes. What's next? So there come at midlife, we either hit a crisis or a real existential crisis, physical crisis. Mine was a health crisis where what's got us here isn't going to get us any further. And I had a cancer diagnosis,
Mm.
and I went through about a third of the radiation and chemotherapy, treatments, but my body told me this isn't right. This isn't right. So I really got some clear messages that that wasn't right for me. It's a very personal journey, and I would never presume to tell anybody what they should do. But in my situation, I knew that my body was being harmed more by the radiation than it was by the cancer at that point. So I fired my oncologist and I'm like, okay, now we get to figure out how to cure cancer. I know I am a soul with a body, not a body with a soul. I am a soul with a body, but I didn't have a way. I knew all of this stuff. Placebo effect is extreme is the most successful drug trial out there, right? The mind works, but I didn't have access to this. I tried for months to try and see how I'm going to, and I could slow it down, but I couldn't get rid of my cancer. And so, as someone who had never even smoked pot, I'm looking for these alternatives. And Joe Dispenza, who talks a lot, has a lot of things about mind and the body and the connection with DNA and that kind of thing, epigenetics. I read that, it made sense. But again, this is a human trying to understand these supernatural phenomena inside of a construct, you know, that was raised in small town Pasadena, Texas. How do I do this? So I was learning a lot. My first plant medicine that I tried was ayahuasca.
Okay.
And so when I say plant medicine, I mean, first of all, midlife medicine, I am the medicine. Ayahuasca did not cure my cancer. I did. Okay. Ayahuasca gives me access. Bufo gives me access to different mental constructs and energy and different things I can do in my life. I've tried iboga, I've done these different plant medicines, but for me, in my journey, ayahuasca gave me access to reconnecting my mind, my body, and my spirit. There came a point in my younger life where I told and my vision in this was my ego told my sweet, godly, spiritual little girl, sit down, shut up, be quiet. I'm going to get us through this. Right. And she did for the next 30 years. But in doing so, we all became disconnected. And by disconnecting, we lost the power of being a spirit in a body. And so this midlife medicine journey has given me access to these different modalities, whether it's ayahuasca, iboga, yahe. My experience of what they do for me is they take away some of those walls that we've built. You mentioned earlier about how I now get to define myself, right? How we define ourselves can be the jail cell we choose to live in. Ooh. It has walls. The second I stand up and I say I'm a liberal, then that suddenly eliminates this whole thing around some of the other things that the conservatives. I limit myself, right? I can identify with certain things, but the second I define myself, these walls come up. And at some point, we become this maze, And so my sort of mental picture of what I got access to with ayahuasca is all the walls came down. I got to see the whole landscape. I got to see my connection to God. I got to see that for me. And again, everything I saw and experienced was me translating into my language and my experience, my construct. So it's going to be different for every one of us. But what I saw was that God is in every cell of my body. He's not up there, right? This right here is an expression of God and divinity. And so my life changed in that realization. And yet I came home and I had to do laundry and, I had to get a job and work. So my experience since then, this book is about exploring the different types of plant medicine, what they're available, preparing for them, midlife medicine is specifically about that, addressing that midlife, like, who am I? What's going on? And how to do that with different medicines. We talk about mushrooms. I talk about ayahuasca, bufo, iboga, different things in this book. And then my other book, 21 Days of Self-Love and Mindfulness, really explores who we get to be once we take those walls down and connect again with our emotions, with our brilliance, that mental aspect, and our physical body, with our spirit. I'll stop there. I feel like I've been
Oh,
talking a long time.
no, this is wonderful. I love every bit of this. And I know that plant medicine has kind of hit the mainstream a little bit. People are starting to talk about it more. And I also know that that intensity may not necessarily be for everyone, depending on where they are at in their life, right? So you started with ayahuasca, which to me is like mind blowing because I always hear everybody talk about, I have talked with some that did start with that, but a lot of people that I tend to speak with have started with something smaller, right? Something that maybe didn't last as long, maybe had a little bit more control of, because I have heard that ayahuasca can be a little overpowering because it is not intense in a bad way, but there is so much in what you are seeing when you go through your journey. And correct me if I'm wrong. The journey of ayahuasca is it 8 to 12 hours or
It's about 8 hours, and it is intense, and it's very personal. A significant part of the whether it's I've heard this with iboga as well. I've certainly experienced it. I didn't experience it with iboga because I had kind of let go of it before I got there. But a significant part of the angst with these medicines are us just holding on to its resistance.
mm,
Me holding on to that identity that is defined by these walls while they're just trying to get this part of me is just trying to let me just let the walls down just for a second. And it's life or death. At some point, to us, we determined that keeping that wall up and that identity is life or death. And so this struggle, this angst can oftentimes, that energy, it's all energy. This is why it's important. I want to go back to something I said about religion and spirituality. Here on earth, our experience of these things are influenced by the people we do it with. It's very important that you know who made the medicine, who
mm,
serves the medicine, and that you have people around you who are aware of energy and who can move and acknowledge and support positive energy. So, a lot of what you experience, that all of what you experience is energy. That's all there is. And it is influenced, number one, by what you bring, and number two, by who you have there supporting you. It's very intense, no doubt.
mm.
But
I
again,
love that.
I was I had to figure out how to cure cancer.
Yeah.
And I will say I went to Costa Rica. There's a place there that is a certified medical facility. I mean, I wanted a place that had paramedics outside, you know.
Yeah.
And so my first time I did that. But still, I'm going to just pat myself on the back. It takes this sick amount of courage to go to another country and just show up and, take it. None of the medicines that I've experienced like cripple me and make me get so vulnerable that I don't know what's happening. I've never had that experience, but it's extremely raw, extremely vulnerable. So.
Mm. I love that. I love you said that it's extremely raw because I think that that's not an emotion that we tend to want to feel at all, right? Even when it comes to crying about a loved one or something that's happened, that is a very raw emotion. And
Yes.
we have been taught as a society to suppress that, to ignore that, to be strong and pretend that that doesn't happen. And the rawness of feeling that, in my personal opinion, is the ultimate show of strength, especially for someone coming through a domestic violence relationship. I learned not to cry because in my brain, when you cry, you were made fun of, things got worse in the household, or something else happened. So I learned not to cry because that emotion caused a horrible effect.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize it at the time, even coming out of that relationship, how much of that suppression was affecting my day-to-day life. It was hardening that soft heart that I know that I do have. Like you said, it put those walls up of what I was willing to accept and what not to accept. And in my brain, right, my subconscious, we were protecting this beautiful soul, this vulnerable, piece of glass is what it felt like. And the moment that I decided to do it differently, not that it's super easy for me, I will say that right off the bat. And I've been working on this for the last 5.5 years. But being able to just break down sometimes, have 10 minutes in the shower for absolutely no reason at all,
Yes.
is so relieving, and it isn't associated with this feeling of something bad is going to happen. And I think that this is the interesting thing that any type of plant medicine can allow us to see as well, is that we as human beings have created the construct of what is bad and what is good. And we are so ingrained in what those mean. And they have been truth for so long in our society, whether written or not, that we just take it on and say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, right? Just like if you
It
lick an
becomes
ice
true.
cream. Yeah, if
Yes.
you lick an ice cream and you're like, oh, this tastes like vanilla. Well, then the person next to you, whether knowing it or not, if they hear that, are going to be like, oh, yeah, that does taste like vanilla. We are conditioned to understand things that we are able to relate to. So when we look at raw emotions and dealing with things like this and opening up these spaces of what we have always defined ourselves as, that is probably the scariest shit we ever have to pay attention to, is to
Yes.
be able to say, this is a version of me or a version of this emotion. I am choosing to see it differently. I am choosing to accept it as something else. I am choosing to give it a new definition, which I don't think that all of us know and understand how much power we really have behind choice.
You chose it the first time. That's what gave it the power. That choice you made as a little girl, look at the power that had. And I love Brene Brown says you can't selectively numb.
Oh, I love Brene Brown.
And the second you say we can't go there emotionally, I'm going to limit myself here with regard to whatever caused me to cry. You can't cry for good things either, right?
Mm.
So you've limited yourself. A lot of what happens in an ayahuasca ceremony is releasing emotions. A lot of healing is releasing emotions. Buried emotions gather density. They become tumors. That's my belief. They stay in your body. They become arthritis, right? It's energy that can't move, that gets stuck, that isn't acknowledged, that isn't allowed. When I have a twin brother, and I took him after I had done ayahuasca a few times. I said, you know, you're going to try this. And his first time, all he did for 4 hours was cry.
Mm.
I mean, his pillowcase was wet. Like he just had so much to let out. But we grew up with a single mom who had 4 kids. Well, at one point she had 3 kids under 3, right? And then the fourth one came a few years, and she just everything needed to be in place or she was upset. And so we are really good at and I used to say I'm such a good fixer. I am a great problem solver, right?
Yes.
That's a life or death thing for me. But when I realized being in this ceremony, one of my ceremonies, I kind of got up and was kind of coming out of it. It goes through waves. So you'll go through a little thing of like, what was that? You know? And I'm looking around and I hear somebody over here crying or somebody over here throwing up or somebody who's just raw. And I realize that my version of fixing and problem solving was to immediately turn off someone's emotions. If someone is about to cry, I can keep them from crying. If someone is
Ooh.
about to panic, I can keep them from panicking because I've just been conditioned to avoid shows of emotion, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's great that you've recognized it, that you see it, and it's certainly something that is not only available but kind of necessary in this journey to break through and to find who we are. And I love coming out of it. This place I went in Costa Rica, one of their t-shirts says, "Relax, nothing is under control." It isn't just
Yes.
being willing to let go of emotions, it's being let go of this grip we have on the way things have to be in order for us to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Oh, touching my heart. Oh,
Just keep
sunflower,
breathing, keep
seriously.
breathing.
I'm
Yeah.
good. We're good. I'm good. No, I love these kinds of conversations because this is the depth that for so long I was afraid to go into. These are the kinds of conversations that if anybody brought up things like that, I immediately was like squirming at my seat, like, and then I would make the joke, right? Or say something completely out of line to try and change the conversation. And now I find myself doing that when people start talking about the weather. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But did you know
Did
there's
you know
this
that you're a soul? Yes,
there's
yes.
this beautiful education and deepness, and like you said in the beginning, this connection that we end up not only seeing, but you really do feel it when you are talking about certain things. And
Yes.
while the connection of the emotions may still also be there as well, they aren't so overpowering because you have suppressed them for so long. And so you get to like feel them and appreciate them. And then you continue to move on. And I think that that is one of the coolest things that has ever happened for me is being in that space where I was the same way. If I could control an emotion, if I could get people to shut up so we could all just be happy, then that was the focus. And I was like that as well when I came out of my relationship. Everything had to be in a place at a specific time to the point to where when I would go out on the weekends, and I needed to like go to a couple shops, do some stuff for the kids and things like that. I literally would map out a route. Okay, I got to hit these 5 shops, but this shop is here and that shop is over there. So if I started here, then I could go this way. Or if I started over there, then I could end up home. I'd be closer home. And it had to happen that way. And if for some reason something got thrown off or I wasn't able to make it to that day because it got too late or my kids got tired, I would literally have a panic attack of like, well, okay, when am I going to get it done? I'll have time to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Sunday. I got to get ready for work the next day. I got to get my kids ready. I got all these things that I've got to do. Like I would just down the rabbit hole, I would go and just funnel myself into the deepest, darkest, like this one place that I didn't get to go to destroyed the entire weekend. And when I started to learn that, like, okay, sometimes I may have stuff that, like, this needs to get done this weekend. Okay. Those become the
And you
priority.
know how to do that.
Yeah. And let go of the other things where it's like, ah, crap. I
That's
really
right.
wanted to do that. You know what? Okay, fine. Maybe I can do it like after work. Oh, you know what? I could actually just order that online. Let's just order it online. It's done. It's taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. We do have so many abilities at our fingertips of things to be able to delegate out all of the things that need to be done versus having to be the one to go into the store or make sure that this is taken care of. And I have to say that there's such a relief in that. And don't get me wrong, there are times where I'm like, oh, but I really needed to get that done. Now am I going to get it done? How am I going to get done? Okay, we'll just figure it out. Figure it out later. We're going to figure it out later. Like I still find myself still in that space of like wanting to have that type of control. And at the same time, it's a lot easier to talk myself through it and come
Good.
out of that space. I don't find
Yeah.
myself so stuck in it that my kids are playing in the kitchen or playing outside and I don't even know what they're doing. They're like, Mom, did you see that? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was great, sweetie. I'm so disconnected from the in-person, the present experience because I'm so stuck on the other piece. And you completely miss that. And I did that in my life for so long. And I know that every single person listening has been in that space before where
Right.
you have been with friends or you've been with your children or been with family and you are so stuck on something that you are allowing to consume you that you miss out on the present pieces. And those are the most important.
Yeah. And I have a story about that. This was actually early on. I learned a lesson about this. It's the difference between having the skills. I mean, the gift that you have for planning and getting things done. I mean, it's a valuable gift, but there's a difference
Yes.
between having a gift and a gift having you, right?
Ooh.
You know, that perfectionism, you can have it. It's valuable. You're good at it, but don't let it have you. And one of the things that I would have missed out on when I decided I have an MBA, and when I decided to get my MBA, my kids were like 9 and 11. And I was married, and my husband was a workaholic attorney. Like he woke up late for his first meeting. And so he kind of like got out of the bed, left, came home some around, bless him and took care of us. No stress about that. But I decided to do a weekend intense MBA program for a year and a half. So I talked to him. He's like, I got you. I got the kids. I can help. And I'm like, letting go of that was a big deal for me. Right.
hmm
And so the first weekend, it was in the fall and it was a Friday, and I'd gone to my class and he had taken the kids to their Halloween carnival. And we both met up at home later, and he didn't have the girls. And I'm like, where are the girls? And he says, they're spending the night with friends. And I'm like, all right, well, that's cool. I said, who? And he's like, oh, the dad's that tall guy. What? What tall guy? No, you don't know who our kids are with, right? I'm like, and so I got right then that he didn't do it like I would do it.
Mm.
But like 2 weeks later, my youngest daughter had an accident on her horse and actually had a brain a bleed and had to have emergency surgery. And he handled it while I was in class. Like I came out of class and found out she's in the hospital and she's had emergency surgery. He handled it beautifully, right? Saved her life. I'm not sure what I would have done. I just know that what he did saved her life. So I had to get that he's not going to do it like me and like kind of let go. But
hmm
it allowed me to pursue a passion. I love my consulting business. I love what I've learned there and how I've gotten to grow there. And if I had that first weekend said, unacceptable, get out of the way, I would have lost out on that. But
Yeah.
I got to tell you, at least once a year, I hear myself say, it's not how I would do it. Right? So yeah, that's just
Yep,
one of those
all the
stories.
time because yeah, real the same. My husband does things very differently than I do. I'm a little bit more planned and to be able to relinquish that control and put trust in someone and say, "Okay, I know that you've got it." And if you forget a step or two, then we'll talk about it, but it's not the end of the world.
That's
So
right.
I have to ask you then as we're kind of getting toward the end, when it comes to ayahuasca, because I know a lot of people are not going to go Google what on earth this is and all
Yeah.
the things. To you, do you feel like ayahuasca is the end all be all? Like this is where you want to go, this is what you want to do. And once you do it once, you are good, you are changed? Or do you feel like this is something that one, you do have to kind of see if it is something that you feel you are ready for? And is it a continued journey? Do you go back and do it again? And when you do it again, do you learn more? Do you see that those walls kind of start to come back up and it helps break them down? Like how do you see the journey of ayahuasca?
Great question. So let's see. First of all, I wouldn't only do ayahuasca once, because the first time you do ayahuasca, your brain is like, what was that? What did that mean? Did I get it? Did I get, and you're still there. So you need to do it 2 or 3 times. And my first time I did it 4 nights in a row.
Ooh.
And so I would do it at least two, just so that you can get through the first one and go, okay, that's all right. So um, I had a friend invite me to this place to do ayahuasca with her like 8 months before I went. And my response was, I don't do that. It just wasn't there. Right. So I truly believe there's a time that we're called to it, that it's the right time, that we know what we want to address.
Mm.
It's very valuable to go in with an intention. So, but I would also tell you that whatever you go in thinking you're going to get out of it, it's not going to look the way you think, because you're going to go in with your box, right? But
Yeah.
go in with an intention and be willing to say, I want to look at this and I want to see it differently. So number one on the journey, don't go until you're called. Don't feel pressured. It isn't something everyone should do. When it's time, if and when it's right for you, go do it. And number two, when you do it, go somewhere that someone else you know has gone, someone that you trust, check it out, right? Know who's serving you the medicine, know the context, and do it more than once. Now, that first time I did it, the 4 times in a row, changed my life. Like, I felt what happy felt
Mm.
like for the first time in my life, or the first time I can remember. So you can do a one and done. I know a lot of people who have. I wanted to go back and say, but what if I could go without a life or death situation? What else is available? And I've done ayahuasca probably 40 times. And
Wow.
but every time I get something new out of it, you know, there's a depth. It's like peeling onion layers. So if you're into that kind of like, I want to learn more, I want to see more about what this experience can be. Not everyone's into that. Some people just want to go and get, I want to understand what I'm not seeing about a relationship. You know, I want
Mm-hmm.
to understand what I'm not seeing here. And you can go do a weekend, 2 or 3, sessions, and get that with one visit. Or you can really, take it on and explore a little deeper. The real value, yes, there's this mountaintop experience when you leave, right? Bring it home. Bring what you saw home. Integrate it into how you live your life. Um, uh, you know, Take the lessons. If you just go and see some insight and understand a lot about control, and then try to continue doing what you've always done, you don't get as much valuable. So there's a lot of value in the ayahuasca journey and what you bring home.
Mm.
Does that kind of cover what you
Yes.
asked?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that was wonderful. That is a beautiful understanding definition. Yes, I love that. Thank you. Okay, so as we come to a close then, is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with? A quote, something you've learned, anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah. Yeah. And it changes. So I'm going to just go with what's here for me today. One of my sessions, I worked with a shaman named Sarah. And I was struggling through my ayahuasca session. I'm like, what can I not let go? What is causing me to just stay here and still not be able to release this? What am I not releasing? And I realized I really kind of had a codependency that I needed to deal with my daughter. And I
Mm.
went up and I talked to the shaman, and I thought this was the greatest question I'd ever come up with. I said, here's a question. How can a mom be happy when her kids aren't?
Ooh.
And her answer to me was, you can't make your kids happy. And I was talking to her about making healthy choices, and you can't make your kids make healthy choices. All you can do is show your kids what happy and healthy looks like. And honestly, that's what I'm doing here, not just with my kids, not just helping. I can't make people feel. I can't make people express their divinity or even know it. I can show them what it looks like.
Mm.
And I get to do
Oh,
that. I get to do that. That's what I'm doing here. That's why I write my books. That's why I have post my videos and share. I'm really not attached to what happens beyond there or what people need to do or should do. I just want to
mhm.
show you what this looks like because I'm having a great time.
I love this so much. Oh my gosh. Beautiful words, Sunflower. Thank you so much. Okay, so do us all a favor then and tell us, how can people connect with you? Where can they find
Yeah.
you? How can they be in your world?
The easiest thing to do is to go to my website, which is sunflower-medicine.com. And there are all kinds of ways to reach out to me there. My email address is there. You can get a free guide to preparing whatever plant medicine you want to go try. It's got a guide on how to prepare for that, and also learn more about my books. So I'm also on Instagram. It's dr.sunflower.medicine, and TikTok, just one word, sunflower medicine.
No, I love that so much. Of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes for you. So we'll make it super easy for you to be able to connect with Sunflower and learn more about her and follow her journey. Or maybe this is a part of your own journey. So, Sunflower, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. Thank you.
You are so welcome. To everybody else out there listening, I really hope that you are seeing that while we are in a time of very much uncertainty from all different angles, you do not ultimately have the ability to control all of those things. But what you do have the ability to do is learn to figure out what you can control. And sometimes that is just you. That is just your emotions, your presence in the world, the boundaries that you decide to put up or let fall short. This is about you. And the more that we have the ability to look inward, the easier it is to then put that out and get out of the world what we want to get out of it. And that for me ends up being the ultimate control. So thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. We'll catch you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable